What is going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar with C-Zar Gets Crypto. We are going to talk about Bitcoin today and some other coins. Pepe, Ethereum, Dogecoin. We're going to talk about all of them, actually. I'm going to try to make this quick so that we go through each of them, give them their detailed time. My video I made last night, I was saying the dominoes are ready to fall for Bitcoin. And in that video, I was talking about, we were up here, and it looked like the RSI wanted to break below the 50. It did. And I was saying, we went back and measured the last 9 iterations, I think, of the RSI doing this. Anytime that it's made a move, a substantial move, which I would call this below the 50. The average move that we derived, this fits like the minimum. It's like 5.6, I think that fits the minimum. But the average move was about 7.5%. And I thought, so that'd bring us down about, another $600, which we could do. We could bottom here temporarily, whatever, but this is on a 4-hour scale. On the daily scale, what's exciting about this if you're bearish, it's not exciting if you're bullish, beware. Bear, just so you know, means going down-minded. Bull means you're going up-minded. Anyways, this candle here, this one, do I not have any volume? Let me read. I'm not talking about volume on the. I know you can hear me, but I mean volume on the chart. There we go. Just had to refresh it. I think I had it set up from yesterday. So let's see here on the daily time frame. Do we have any volume coming in? We've got some volume. The last 3 days have technically been above average. But this day isn't a lot of volume yet, so we could. We got 9.5 hours left in this day. It could come back up. It totally could. We're at the purple line. It could bounce here. It definitely could. Let's see. We're below the 50. We're already below the 50. So I don't know. I wouldn't expect a bounce here. And if there was a bounce, it would be short-lived. It might, maybe at the most come up to like 27.4, 27.3. And then turn around and go lower from there, and that would all happen within a day's time. I think within at least like 6 or 12 candles. But on this daily time frame, man, the fact that we've engulfed most of this candle already in the last 3 days, with more volume. Technically, it's taken more time, but more volume to the downside than there was to the upside. And we got 9 hours left in this day, so let's just see where it ends up. But the dominoes are starting to fall. And the 4-hour, what I was bringing up on the 4-hour was when this RSI crosses below the 50, we have a minimum of a 7.5 or not a minimum, an average drop. In recent times at least. I didn't go through and measure everything for Bitcoin. I just measured the last 9 iterations that fit the parameters we gave it. I didn't include stuff like this that was just sideways, BART patterns. I didn't include that. I only included stuff that was like a significant move with volume backing it up, not when we're just bored and just, jumping around up and down. Only significant moves. So with that, it was about 7.5%. That would bring us to 26.3 if we're to meet the average or go lower or maybe not go as low. That's just the average. I said then that once we did that, we'd be below the 50 on this 4-hour, which would be a good thing for the bears, bad thing for the bulls. That would take us below the 50 on the daily, which, to be fair, we haven't even gotten to the average yet, and we are already below the 50 on the daily. A price closing, if the day closed around here, even just a little bit higher, but if it closed around 27.3, that would probably be enough to get it above the daily, maybe even 27.2. But for right now, this is looking like a cross, and if it can hold around these prices or lower even, it's definitely going to cross down to the downside. We measured any time that Bitcoin had a moment where it went above the 50 briefly and then came back down, just like moments like this where it went above the 50, it went above the 50, came back down. I measured both these moments. We did, I think, 12 iterations, and 2 of them were greater than like 30%. One of them was like 42%, one of them was like 35 or 38%. And I did an average with those included, so that's off the last 12 iterations, and I did an average without those. With those included, same kind of idea from relative top to where it went. With it being included, or I'd say without, let's start without. It was about, I want to say 14, it was like 13.8%, 13.9%. And, an average, it would be an average drop. So this doesn't mean it has to be exactly this. It could go a little bit less of a drop. It could go a little bit more of a drop. This is just the average drop we had without the extremes involved. and that would put us around a price of $24,500. And that's exciting because if we got that, then the weekly would definitely cross below the 50. I mean, look at how close it is already. We're right now we're at 53.8. If the price dropped this low, it would definitely break the 50 on this RSI, and that's the real breadwinner there, because whenever we go from overbought to below the 50 on this RSI every single time in Bitcoin's history. Not just 9 iterations, not just 10. I actually don't know how many iterations it has doing this, but it's specific parameters. You know, this one's probably the most specific parameters that I've set out, is being overbought and then crossing the 50. Not being overbought and coming out of it. This still held the 50, so I didn't count this drop. You know, I'm not measuring every drop. I'm just measuring when we went overbought and then below the 50. That's it. And then when we came back up above so I wouldn't measure this bottom, I would measure this bottom. But maybe this is a rejection of the 50, so I don't know how I did that one. But, you know, I don't know. It might not be. But the main thing I'm trying to say is that if the daily average is in play now, which I think it is, because, again, we have the daily cross on the 50, on the RSI. If this day closes like this, then on average we see a move that's about 14% without the extremes. With the extremes, it was about 18 and a half, 18.3, I don't know, something like that, which would put us around, and I remember, I think it was around like 23,500 versus 24,500 was the prices that we were looking at. And either of those prices, what's exciting if you're bearish, not so exciting if you're bullish, what's exciting is that either of those prices would lead to a cross here on the weekly RSI. And that has a 100% authenticity rating. It's got 100% accuracy for calling moves whenever we're overbought to breaking the 50 on the weekly RSI. That has been 100% of the time indicator of a significant move that is at a minimum. I mean, I think the true minimum was like 47%. But looking at it, I feel like it should have been really more of a 52% move. It went above the 50 real quick, and then it had a little fake out. So I would like to say that the minimum really is 52%. Regardless, 47% or 52%, the 47% would put us at a higher low here. 52% would put us at a slightly lower low, breaking this low. And I do think that fits the narrative that I'm looking for more. Being that we're in this giant corrective pattern, an ABC pattern on Bitcoin. We're also on one of these on Ethereum, by the way. They're actually following the same kind of zigzag pattern. You can draw it on Ethereum, but this is the AB. We're in the beginning of the C wave right now. And the C wave is normally as big as the A wave. I don't expect it to be as big as the A wave, but I do expect that we will bottom either sometime at the last 2 months of this year, sometime in November or December, or it's even to me not completely out of the question that we could bottom sometime in 2024. As we get closer to April, as we get closer to the halving date, I wouldn't anticipate that we would bottom there. You know, if we've already had like a pretty decent low and things are looking weary over around there, I would say we've probably already bottomed. But it's months away. We'll get there when we get there. I'm just saying historically, traditionally, generally, Wave C is as big as Wave A. So having a Wave C that would be smaller than Wave A is unconventional. It's not impossible. It can happen, and I actually expect that to happen now. And we can see here in the Wave B pattern, which was an ABC pattern as well, a smaller correction in this greater correction. You can see here that the Wave C is smaller. It is smaller than Wave A. It's just a little bit smaller than Wave A. I forget. I think I drew this. Let me see. Just Wave A like that, from tip to tip. That's its length. Wave C here. I don't know. Wave C is definitely smaller than Wave A. However you want to cut it, so that's not conventional, but because we had that unconventional, Wave C being short, this could be foretelling of the Wave C that we're in, that's coming right now, that we're literally in the beginning of, and the dominoes are starting to fall, man. It literally started with this 4 hour, and the reason it started with this 4 hour is because when we broke below the 50 on this RSI, that was indicative that we would drop at least 7.5%. Maybe not at least, but on average 7.5%. And a drop like that would make the daily cross below its 50, which we already are doing. If we hold this structure for the next 9 hours, a lot can happen in 9 hours. We could turn up. It could be a whole different story by the end of the day. And if it is, I'll be here to talk about it. But right now, it is looking exciting for the downside. Volume is picking up. It is, it's still kind of lackluster, to be honest. I've got my volume set to the 10 here. I want to set it to the, let's just put it at the 30. Get it a little more, yeah, so technically a below average volume for the last, really for a while now. Like, truthfully, since like the middle of May, we've had below average volume. So that's what made me think that this was a bull trap here, was this happened over the weekend. It happened during times of low volume anyways. This is the second biggest daily candle we've seen in over a month, and it had very lackluster volume. The big one that we saw over here that was the biggest is 5.17, and that didn't even have the most volume, but it had above average volume for sure. Twice as much volume as this one had that was smaller, and it was just 1% smaller. You would expect it to be like just a little bit lower volume, not. And it doesn't have to be, there's no exact rules of volume. It can be whatever it wants. This was a small body. It went up and down. There was a lot of volume. That's probably because there's a lot of buying and selling going on. It's a neutral candle. But I digress. What I'm trying to talk about is the 4 hour casted this daily cross, which we measured any time that the daily went above the 50 temporarily and then crossed back below. We had a average of a 13, anywhere from a 13, basically it was a 14%. It was just under 14%. Anywhere from a 14 to an 18% drop. I think it was like 18.5, and that would put us anywhere from like $24,500 to $23,500. And a price move like that, building up to the weekly, again, I'm just wrapping it all in a bow, would cross us below this 50 here, and to me, that would be condemning. Very condemning, excruciatingly condemning that Bitcoin is going to go below this low here, that we are going to have at a minimum of a 52% drop. I don't expect a 52% drop. I expect this to be the minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if it was greater than that from high to low, if we saw, and I mean, when I say high to low, I mean before it crosses back up above the 50. I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if we saw like a 70% drop. Things could stay bearish. It could happen. I would be surprised if we saw that. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something that was like a 60% drop or a 55% drop, a little bit bigger than 52%, but it also wouldn't surprise me if we turned around right around the 52% area. I just expect this drop to happen at a minimum. This to me is like the minimum expectation. That's why I keep talking about it. And that is not in play yet. That will become in play when this RSI, the weekly RSI, which just rejected off the bullish control zone, crosses below the 50. When that happens, I will yell about it. I will be on here yelling about it. I promise. Not to mention, we go back and we look at the MA exponential ribbon here. I'm going to delete all this stuff here. Put it on the log scale. There we go. So a price drop on the daily time frame, right? If this was to drop 13%, it was almost 14% actually. So let's just draw like closer to 14. 13.9 is good with me. I think it was 13.96% on average actually, without the outliers. So a move like that would put us at $24,500. And on the weekly scale, that would put us below this ribbon. Now, if we close the weekly below this ribbon, let alone below the yellow line is the real key, but if we close this weekly or next week below this ribbon, this is going to look like an extreme bearish setup. We have been contracting, we've been winding up this ribbon, getting real tight. Anytime the ribbon's tight and it goes to expand, that's when the big moves come. When it's expanded, that's when you start to move sideways a little bit. Like, look at how tight it is over here. Big moves down, start to expand by over here, and we're moving sideways. Truthfully, I showed this yesterday. We've been in this range for Bitcoin. We've been in this kind of range here for almost a year, since June of last year. And I know that they look like different ranges, but really, we're kind of in this general shape, whatever kind of shape that is. Draw your lines however you want. I would say we've been in this range. Bitcoin's been moving sideways really for like the better part of a year, honestly. And if and when the price gets below this ribbon, we're going to see the same kind of price action that we saw whenever it started to expand down here. The same kind of price action we saw whenever it started to expand down here. Like all this stuff. It's about to happen. So, we contracted here a little bit, and then we had a nice, and it doesn't work the same way going down as it does going up. A 43% drop I could see. I could definitely see more than that. But you know, if you take 100, you want to double it, you want to make 100% drop, right? That's I guess that's not really a good representation. I don't know what I was about to say, man. But really what I'm trying to say is if the price drops below this, which it's looking like it's going to. If we get a daily close this low or lower, the RSI will cross 50. We'll be below the ribbon again. This will have been a fake out above it, a straight rejection down, and this already looks bad, man. The last time that we had on a daily, the last time we had a bearish daily cross was all the way back here. We did the same kind of thing. We went above it for a brief amount of time, and then we went low, man. In a matter of let's see how much time this was. I've done this a bunch of times. I keep forgetting. In a matter of 3 weeks, from the high, we went down 41%. So in a matter of, you know, I'm not saying it's going to take 3 weeks. It could take 2 weeks. It could take a little bit more time. But you know, 3 weeks would put us in the middle of June. I do expect June to be a bearish month, and a 41% drop would take Bitcoin down. It would take Bitcoin down to $16,000, and I don't necessarily expect that to happen. I think this drop might be less dramatic, and it might take longer, but it could happen. It happened before. It happened in the beginning of the bear market, and right now we're starting the next leg down in the bear market. So this is the beginning of the final descent. It really could. We could see a below $17,000 Bitcoin sometime in June. That is completely possible. I don't expect that. Personally, I don't expect that, but it could happen, especially with the way that the daily's looking. It's very tightly wound up, especially the way that this weekly is looking. Everybody was bullish on this, thinking that it was going to cross to the upside. There's going to be a lot of selling pressure whenever we go below. But hey, you know, Bitcoin is battling right now. It is holding up a little bit. We'll see how the day closes. We'll see how this week closes. I'll keep you monitored and paid attention to and all that stuff. We are rejecting the 4 hour. It looks like it wants to cross, and when that happens, that's not as detrimental as the daily or the weekly by any means, but I would expect it to bring more downside to come. And we can see here too, just real quick before I move off of Bitcoin and we look at Pepe, you know, the volume is picking up. Volume is picking up to the downside. We had no volume coming in. Like, there's more volume now coming into the downside. We haven't even swallowed up all this yet. There's going to be more volume. This is very indicative, in my opinion, that this was a fake move. The real move is happening. Volume's picking up as the real move comes in. So anyways, that's Bitcoin. That's all I got. You know, I might just make this a video, and then I'll make a separate video for Pepe and a separate video for ETH. So that's what I'll do. All right, so take care. Follow me, like and subscribe if you like this content, you want to see more of it. And yeah, I'm on Twitter. You can follow me at Chris Harris 85. At Chris Harris 45 is my TikTok if you want to follow me on TikTok. I used to have really long hair. You know, I was a lot cooler back in the day. And now I'm lame. All right, take care, everybody. Yeah.